Hi, folks. I'm Adrian Sanabria, the host of Enterprise Security Weekly. Every week, we interview the most interesting folks we can find, talking about the most pressing cybersecurity issues and challenges facing the enterprise today. Myself and my co-hosts have each been in the industry for decades, long enough to see the patterns in the industry and explore where trends are going. In addition to enterprise challenges, we also follow the vendor space, the most interesting security startups emerging, technology and product trends, all the most interesting funding and acquisition announcements. Finally, we love to discuss the latest trends in tech and how they'll impact cybersecurity. If you're wondering how the latest in AI, quantum computing, cloud, and DevOps is going to impact security a few years down the road, you should follow the Enterprise Security Weekly podcast.
Welcome back, everyone, to Apollo's Security Weekly. I try to make regular posts on my social media. I'm on like a 2 posts per day across all of my socials. And I tend to post stuff, mostly funny stuff about cybersecurity, hacking, and IT, but also like stuff that happens to me in my everyday life that I find funny, it being, like a hacker. And this year was pretty funny. A couple years ago, my Traeger smoker decided to update firmware on Thanksgiving morning. Now, it very well could be that firmware update came out long before Thanksgiving and I just hadn't fired up my smoker before Thanksgiving. But this year on Thanksgiving, I was like, you know what, night before, I'm firing up my smoker just on the off chance that it's going to send me a firmware update. Because on the Traeger, you can't opt out of a firmware update. If you fire up your Traeger, it does its normal thing, and then it goes, oh, wait, sorry, hang on, got to do a firmware update. And no, by the way, don't turn off the smoker while I'm doing it. I'm like, there's no except, there's nothing. And it did that the night before, this year, on Thanksgiving. Did the same thing. I was like, huh? I got your number now.
Again, how long had it been since you had turned the trigger on?
A month? So conceivably, this year, I probably could have fired it up before, and it would have applied. But I also think that probably the month of November is not like prime Paul smoking meat on the Traeger weather for whatever reason. Or just, I don't know.
But that's the perfect reason to do updates because it's
Do we have a guest, Paul?
We do. And I was going to say, you can find all my social media on securitypodcaster.com. Let's see. Tyler Robinson has joined us and Lee Neely has joined us. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Hey, it's great to be here.
And it has been a while since we've done 2 interviews on the show, but I'm very excited to welcome Mr. Matt Carpenter, who is an exploitation expert and hacking tool developer and senior principal over cyber physical research at Grimm. With over 40 years of computing experience, Matt has twiddled the bits, photons, electrons, assembly, emulation, symbolic analysis, firmware and software, hardware, radio, software, reverse engineering, and hacker. Matt has contributed to open source tools like CanCat, GoodFet, RFCat, and Vivisect. Even though he contributed to the first public VMware escaped, when asked, Matt will tell you his superpower is surrounding himself with amazing people. And we're very blessed to have Mr. Matt Carpenter on the show this evening. Matt, welcome.
Thank you. Great to be here.
It is not your first...
amazing people I'm surrounded by right now.
You're an amazing person. I'm glad you're here on the show. It's not your first time here on Security Weekly.
And Matt, senior principal and over 40 years of experience. Do you know what that means?
I'm old.
Yes.
Yes. That's why I get the big boy drinks.
There's something to be said for that. Matt, given you haven't been on the regular show, you were on some kind of special segments that we did where we had a lot of fun. I want to ask you, Matt, how did you get your start in hacking and information security?
Oh wow! You got an hour? That's a weird roundabout way. I had a bachelor in computer science, got into training and LAN administration, telecom, and eventually ended up on a cybersecurity team. And I ended up going to Black Hat, and I had some experience doing CTF work, Metasploit and throwing stuff. It was actually Ed Scotus's class in 2004 that taught me how to use stuff like Netcat and really interesting hacking techniques and tools. But I'm going to Black Hat. Turned out DEF CON was a freebie, and they had to capture the flag. So I jumped in and said, "Hey, let's hammer it. See how this goes." I know Metasploit. And,
So wait, hold on. I just want to recap this. 2004, you take a class with Ed Scotus. You go to Black Hat. DEF CON's a freebie. You end up at the CTF at DEF CON, which for all intents and purposes, certainly in that time frame, one of the most elite CTFs that we have available in our community. Was Jesse one of your teammates back then?
The following year, actually.
The following year, okay.
Yeah. So I show up, and I'm hacking as a lone gun. And
oh wait, so you didn't have a team? You did the CTF by yourself in 04?
Yeah, or 05.
05, okay.
05. The one time they allowed Ronin in, the individuals, and afterwards it was like, I went up to a couple guys who said their third guy, they had a 3-man team, amazing, brilliant, and the third guy was drunk the whole weekend, and I said, so I'm putting together a team. What do you think? And 2 of them joined up, said, but there's two things we need from you. First of all, we want it to be a very small team. Second thing, you got to invite Jesse because he's brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Jesse shows up with a script that does auto like GDB fuzzing thing and exploit development that exploits a local binary. I'm like, yeah, twist my arm. This is one of the most brilliant and I will tell you, one of the coolest, most amazing people that I've ever met.
But for those listening, awesome. You've heard Jesse on the show. Jesse Michael is one of my esteemed colleagues at Eclipsium and has appeared actually twice on Paul's Security Weekly, most recently talking about SMM vulnerabilities. Which was an amazing.
So a number of years ago, when I had my dream come true, and I hired into a defense contractor doing offensive cyber, I tried to get Jesse to come with me and join my team, and he was really nice or he was really thinking about it, but he ended up going to Intel doing micro, like really lower level than I've ever touched stuff to find vulnerabilities in chips. So I've been a great friend, but just a brilliant person that I've loved to watch. He and Mickey both are just enjoyable anytime I get together with them.
They were together on this show a year or so ago, talking about what they were, some research they were doing. I forget which research they've done.
But you don't want to show. You don't want to show favoritism since you work with them.
Right. Yeah. I'm biased though. And but very blessed.
They're totally worth it.
Very blessed. No, but that's interesting how it's a very small community. All our paths kind of intertwined. So it was funny. I was on a call with you yesterday, Matt, prepping for this, and then on a call with Jesse today. So it's a very small circle. But
in the Hackers movie, there's a point where they're digging through, trying to break into the organization, and you got one guy under a desk installing some hardware implant, I'm guessing, or something in the LAN tap, and then you've got the evil guy skateboarding down the hallway, and another guy looking for passwords, and they pass each other, and there's just like this. They both turn and look because there's this recognition. I kind of feel like that with you and I met in 2005.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was very, very early in my hacking career. Where it's just like, you recognize good people, right? And then there's the blessing of knowing people. I mean, let's be honest. I went up to Ed Scotus when I took his class in 2004, and I said, I'm not afraid of greatness. Hi, I'm Matt Carpenter, and shook his hand. And we've somehow managed to form a friendship that's survived ever since. So that's actually how I met you, if I remember correctly.
But I think that's great advice, because I did the same thing with Ed as well. And I think you got to just, however approachable or not Ed is very approachable. not everyone is as approachable as Ed, right? But you gotta make the effort, as much as sometimes that social kind of awkwardness could take over. You just gotta overcome that and try and form relationships, because it's
the same week evening time, and like I think it had to be like 10 o'clock or something, and things had been kind of shutting down, I think maybe 11. And I'm walking through the hallway of the Swan and Dolphin, or wherever the Sands thing was, and there's this guy with an entourage, with friends, future friends following behind him, and this guy who just walks through the lobby, giving off all of the energy of a Greek god. True story. And it turns out that was Mike Poor.
Yeah, I was gonna say that was Mike. That was my guess. That was my guess.
It's totally Mike Poor. And when I met him later, it's like, you give off the energy of a Greek god, and yet you're this amazing, cool person who's, not a dick like Greek gods are, but but we still blame him for everything.
That's right. Oh yeah. Actually, recently on social media, I was blaming him for something. Anyway, I want to talk about AI and LLMs. Matt, you had some thoughts about kind of where we are, where we're going in terms of AI, LLMs. Set the context for me. Like, where's your initial kind of, what roads are we going down, Matt?
So, my initial run in with AI started back in actually 1994, with my introduction to Lisp, I think. And I remember where we were then, and I've been periodically trying to track where we're at, and we've had some significant, like, earth-shattering breakthroughs over the last 30 years or so in AI. And it's, obviously we all had the world shaken when ChatGPT hit the stage. Not necessarily because ChatGPT was this epic change and increase in artificial intelligence, but more because it made it accessible to the common person. Before I had a ChatGPT account, my daughter was making weird, poems on ChatGPT, mocking something, or in the personality of some famous philosopher of old. But and I'm going, this is a big change, and it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that's so difficult, though, is AI's been around for a long time. We've all been victim to it. Long before ChatGPT, we had Facebook. And Facebook and other social media have been leveraging AI for maximum hits, maximum reactions, not necessarily giving us what we want, but giving us content that will get us to engage, get us to change slightly. I watched an amazing documentary, Netflix documentary. You probably have heard of it and probably watched it, I hope, called The Social Dilemma, and talks about how social media is leveraging us. We're the product. And what are we the product for? Is it just our personal information? No. It is the ability to market ads specifically in a way that is most likely to land, to market ideas, videos, thoughts, posts that can change us just a little bit, change our perspective just a little bit. B, invigorate us, make us really happy or piss us off, but whatever it is, make us keep clicking. Clickbait used to be a thing. Turns out clickbait was just nothing compared to what social media has continued to use AI to do. It's all based on machine learning and identifying algorithms that get the desired ends. So then to take that and compare it against an LLM, where it's an LLM has a personality. It's not really got sentience. It's kind of cobbled together. Imagine C3PO with like version 0.1, where C-3PO really doesn't have a personality, doesn't really I mean, he really never did.
Well, no, they did. But what's interesting about C-3PO is in the Star Wars universe, they present him as having feelings, right? But like with no explanation, nothing. Like he's just another character in the movie that's just like a person, but he just happens to be a robot and happens to have feelings.
And it's
I'm
not
like,
good, and is self-proclaimed not good storyteller, yet manages to save them all from the Ewoks through storytelling.
Right.
So,
I was going to say that's
Great
character
point.
development,
right.
right? That's character development. He was a terrible storyteller at the beginning, and then at the end, he's
Right,
you know,
right,
he's got
right.
all the sound effects too, and like great storytelling. But he was written as a protocol droid, right? That's why R2D2 isn't the one telling the story. R2D2 is going, boop, 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 boop. You know, try to laugh at that. But imagine C-3PO 0.1, where it's really that minimum viable product of tying information and language and stuff together in a way that kind of sounds like a person. And that's kind of where we're at with ChatGPT and LLMs, where there's a whole lot of magic going on underneath the covers, and I don't say that like in a oh my gosh mystical way, in more of a it's sleight of hand at the moment. So we start off with Lisp, ended up hitting on Facebook and social media, because I don't want to actually say Facebook is more social media than anything, partly because of what it says about me being old. And we've got LLMs, but we also have other applications of machine learning and AI. And it actually hits on another key issue about AI that I'll try to use this as a natural segue. We have autonomous vehicles. Clearly not enough alcohol in me. So autonomous vehicles have been trained with multiple inputs, and there's a neural network behind these inputs of what's a dog, what's a person, what's a baby in a baby carriage, what does a semi look like as it's on the horizon. And it turns out they need more work on that, because you remember the Tesla that drove into a semi because it just didn't realize that it was not a horizon.
Oh, well, and there's even more recent examples of that, Matt, with Cruise, which I was actually really happy about, that they got permission to have more of a fleet and operate in cities like, I believe it was San Francisco and Los Angeles, right, in California. And then did they crash into things and/or people, and they had to revoke that, which I was very sad, because we all have mutual friends. We'll just leave it at that work for said companies that may do that kind of stuff. And I was rallying. I was like, this is great. But as you said, I think hearing what you said, Matt, I think there's a big difference between, I don't know if I was saying on air, Google Photos, right? Google Photos guy can go search for a dog, and like static images, it does pretty good. But when we try and test the AI and algorithms to go, when you're moving and when other objects are moving, identify those objects, it turns out we got a little ways to go.
We do. We have a long ways to go. Make no mistake, we have a long ways to go. We should celebrate the wins that we have.
Agreed.
By all means. We really should. We have come so far in the last 30 years. It's wildly impressive. Do I believe that Skynet and Terminator is inevitable? Probably. But it's less of a, at some point, it's less of a Chicken Little syndrome and more of a just realizing how we work as humans. It's all right. I probably won't get there, or at least I'll need more alcohol before I go there. But at some point, we have to celebrate what we've got and recognize what it is. Kind of like security products. You install the latest whiz-bang endpoint security product, and if you don't understand both its strengths and its weaknesses, you're at a loss. What real value is there for you having that product? And it's not good. But if you understand the weaknesses, you understand the sober assessment of where the thing is, then you can use it as a tool and actually understand and do risk management based on it. And we have to understand.
That's been the real hard problem, though, right, Matt? Is the ability for the general population. Once AI and ML have been kind of generalized, we blanketed everything in. Everybody had to keep up with their competitors and say they have ML, AI, they utilize this, and there's not enough smart people and or transparency to distinguish what the differences are of what technology is doing what. And to be frank, even the offensive people and people looking at the technology that are very smart, the higher math in order to grasp the concepts to maintain what we're looking at is very few people want to dedicate that time and energy into. So we run into people don't understand tech, they don't understand the risk, and they have very little or limited experience in ways to properly test these things.
You bring up like 7 great points, Tyler, and I curse you because my brain will probably forget to respond to some of them, but exactly that. I'm going to pull a Josh here and I'll pimp up my company while I'm at it.
Yay, Grim.
This is a limited edition. They're no longer available, but I love this water bottle. Wow, where to begin? Yes, and I would say that yes, they should actually be doing that. Unfortunately, the difference between marketing speak and actual technical application is always a real questionable thing. I remember back in 2007, my good friend Ed Scotus invited me out to his place. We spent a week testing a number of endpoint security products against a plethora of malware and 0-day and some other things, because we were just at the cusp of behavioral analysis and things like that, and we proved out that behavioral analysis at the time was pretty much crap. That it was a checkbox on a sales slick that meant that there was a thing where if it happened to access a file, then this particular file, then maybe it'd do something bad. It was horrible. So we always struggle with that, right? What's on the sales slick? What's real? And actually, I'm going to bring up, before I get into the thing that launches from the autonomous driving, I do need to get into first of all, Josh, who preceded me on the show, really appreciated his segment. He brought up some really important things, some very good things. I appreciated a lot of what he said. I agreed with some of what he said, but he brought up the idea of using AI so that we teach the kids what's most important for them in the future, which doesn't include cursive, doesn't include spelling, and doesn't. I mean, ultimately, it doesn't include a communication at some point, which I'll take real issue with, because and part of that's just me being a hacker, because I used to be in graphology. If you're familiar with graphology, I was big into it, where you take somebody's cursive writing and you can find out things about their personality based on how they make their letters, how they loop the thing, how the stuff flows together, how far to the right does it slant or left, and so without cursive, we lose that. Without actually writing our prose, we also lose a lot. There's a lot that I like. I feel very sad.
We need to rock.
I get to know a person.
Porch sometime, Matt.
Oh, what's that?
We need to rock together on a porch sometime and shout at people to get off our lawn.
Absolutely. I'll bring the beer. But no, there is a thing about writing your own paragraphs that tells me about you, and part of the you that you're telling me is how much you actually understand what you're talking about, how confident you are in what you're talking about, and who you are as a person. And I believe that there's an anonymization that naturally comes from having ChatGPT take your bullet points and write it into a paper that is not just unfair, because I'll say, hey, that's not fair, but actually not necessarily in your best interest. But
We start to not stand out, right?
That's a debate.
Can I interject before we get too far down Tyler's multi-pronged question? You brought up Terminator, and I've been wondering for a little while, and I'm wondering if you could clarify things for me. A couple years ago, it was all about Watson, and the robots are going to become sentient, and there's a long history of sci-fi movies and novels.
But those robots only know how to play chess, right?
But
I was going to say, are you talking Watson that played in the Grand Challenge?
IBM's Watson,
DARPA Grand Challenge. Yeah, they played chess and kicked people's ass.
That Watson, not Sherlock Holmes Watson, but there's probably a connection there.
Well, there actually IBM's AI push, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, also has the word Watson wrapped up in it. That's why I asked for clarification. Okay.
And that sort of is where my question is going is, all of a sudden now all the talk is about AI. Is AI a sidetrack? We've gone off on a tangent and we've given up on the machines becoming sentient, or is it the next logical step in the progression before the machines become sentient and Terminator happens?
Which is drag me back onto my path. I took notes during Josh's session. I'm like, okay, I got to make sure that I cover this, and if nobody has any questions, then I'll do this. And you drag me right back onto my path.
I don't want this interview to be a critique of the last interview. Let's get
the first thing. No. The first thing was sentience. Exactly right. So, do I think that AI is going to ruin the world in its current state? No. I do believe that it is causing harm in deepfake video, audio, and other things, where it's being already actively used to degrade trust in how we perceive the world. So, for example, I have a video chat with you and I tell you to go turn off the frickin' breakers to the thing, or disable the antivirus on the server or whatever, but who knows if it's really me? That's actually a problem right now. We have AI, generative AI models, or modifying models that allow us to modify voice and facial features enough where it can be very compelling. That's an abusive use of AI right now, but it's common. It's one of the bigger concerns right now. And that doesn't require sentience. That's simply there's a point at which AI is an augmenter. It's kind of like that chip that went in your head. Like growing up, and actually in my 20s and 30s, I was more concerned that the people with means would end up with a chip in their head that allowed them to do math better than anybody else, allow them to do whatever better than anybody else.
Where do I get one of those
someday?
Right? Exactly. I just want to be able to do math like a sixth grader. That'd be fine.
Common Core.
You don't have to.
I don't care, Common Core or whatever, but step up to a sixth grader would be great.
You're already doing that from your camera on your phone, and the kids' pictures. The ability to do algebra level math is all being done now. Like kids have this.
Right. I don't have the chip in my head. I don't have the chip in my head. It's just in my pocket. Right?
But hold on. I want to go back to what Matt was saying.
Yeah, please.
Huge difference. So our audience sometimes gets some of our audience gets a little fired up when we start comparing to sci-fi, and when we talk about artificial intelligence, and I get it. And I think what really it comes down to is we've been debating some of it, right? I just asked ChatGPT, what's the difference between artificial intelligence and sentient beings, right? And there's huge differences there. And I think that's what frustrates people, because we're not talking about being sentient necessarily. We're a long ways away from that, right? ChatGPT says that consciousness and self-awareness, subjective experience, emotional intelligence, learning and adaptation, I debate that one a little bit, ethical and moral decision-making, what differentiates artificial intelligence from a sentient being. Again, the only one I would
doesn't that differentiate?
Are you plugged into ChatGPT while we're talking?
I just asked the question because I can, right? Because I can, right? And so I will. But again, number 4 is the only one that I would really take issue with that I think we could debate, is that learning and adaptation, because I really think that the AI we have today is learning and adapting. Does that mean it's sentient? No. But certainly it's learning and adapting and getting better. But also it's feeding from inputs from people as well. So I guess you could debate, is it learning and adapting on its own, or is it learning and adapting because we're giving it different inputs?
So that is a really great question. So far, I don't know of any entropy generator that is causing significant actual creative thoughts in AI yet. Yeah. It is one of those things that is probably between us and AGI and ASI, the general intelligence, which means that they're as smart as us or more, and super intelligence was like, okay, we are actually owned by them and we'll probably never know it. So
yeah, I don't know. While you take a drink, though, Matt,
that's what the blue pill's for.
I know. I was thinking of the Matrix today because I had deja vu. I was messaging Tyler.
Oh, something changed.
I was messaging Tyler about something today. That message I sent you earlier today, Tyler, I was sitting in my office here in the studio, getting ready to prep for the show, and I was asking Tyler a question about something that was happening in our field, and I was like, wow, like I've been here before. Like I had this moment of deja vu and I thought of the Matrix.
Yeah. But we don't have to get to sentience for AI to be dangerous, right? We get to this point where sentience isn't the point. The fact is that we have generative AI that can do specific functions that then are very dangerous and or are not, the outcome is not necessarily known in a way that we should know it. This is where the decision-making tree and our ability to control multifaceted information pipelines, this is where AI and ML then become things that we do have to worry about currently. Like when a nuke goes off because X, Y, and Z input was matched and made in order to get to X outcome, that's a problem.
You just brought war games forward like 30 years and applied, instead of replacing the people, you've got an AI. Hey, great. That's great. So sentience is one thing completely different. So in order to go back to the original question, in order for Skynet and the Terminator to happen, we need a sentience, right? Matrix actually as well. Right. We need a sentience. We need an understanding of a self that could totally be written into AI in the not too distant future. I mean, it just takes a stupid or insane or problematic person and the right confluence of events. It's a possibility. It's the reason we need regulation, even though we're not ready for the regulation yet, if that makes sense. Like, well, I think we need to be taking the risks seriously.
As long as we don't have pod bay doors, I mean, there's some risk mitigation in that in and of itself.
So sentience, and then there's understanding, and there's the question of whether ChatGPT actually understands, or if it just is.
Where does there go? Sorry, I was going back to sentience in the 60s.
So a number of my friends, and Vizzy being the most prominent probably, has this opinion that basically AI at this current moment is significantly not much more than autocomplete. And so there's a thing where how much does the AI model actually understand versus have a real pattern of what the next logical, most common types of things are.
What Viz is saying, that Viz is going by that meme, right? It's the Scooby-Doo meme where it's ChatGPT and takes the hood off and it's a bunch of if statements.
That is also just one iteration of AI, right? Like we start to look at what the EOS and some of the supercomputers that have come out from NVIDIA, and where we've taken the hardware in order to exponentially raise the bar for different models and the speed in which we can train these models and the data being input into these models with like Mellanox. then we're at a different level where this can exponentially 10x every month rather than every 6 months. And now we're talking about a different thing outside of just OpenAI. There's many other models and companies doing things that no one wants to talk about. There's those models we have to worry about.
What is Mellanox? Is that like synthetic marijuana or something? What is that?
Ultra fast, high fidelity networking that is feeding direct core pipelines to data inputs for supercomputers.
That was a lot of buzzwords right there.
It was. Wow. I was like, I'm like mildly turned on right now, actually, Tyler.
So actually, I would point at a guy named Gary Marcus who has a regular
it's not
regular newsletter and whatever to
Ow.
Anyway, Gary Marcus is definitely a more realistic, in my opinion. Maybe he's a little pessimistic, but a realistic AI critical thinker, if you will, trying to dissuade us, I think, from the idea that we're really close to AGI, the general intelligence that is very similar to humans, and kind of look behind the curtain of the Wizard of Oz, and point out how much is understanding. Where do we reach a point where understanding is a thing, like where the AI becomes actually understanding of that is not just a baby that I should avoid, but there is value, there's intrinsic value. I don't want to hit the baby, there's a thing, and I'm controlling this vehicle, as opposed to just some rules that we threw at it. The real risks come from the capabilities that we give AI. Currently, ChatGPT is plugged into things like, please write my term paper for me, make it sound like Bobby Brown, or generative AI, where we've got, write me a song, a folk song that decries the badness of passwords, things like that. But as we take trained AI models and we attach it to, and let's go really inane for a moment and just say, attach it to Nmap. Scour the internet, find me the thing, or Metasploit, own me the thing. Dear Hack GPT, I need these things that run on a Solaris box. Go own them. Boom.
That's what Jeff Sims just did with Black Mamba, right? Like polymorphic malware that is self-healing, self-replicating, and targeting based on objectives and goals. Like, this is being done from an offensive standpoint, and that's terrifying. Like, as soon as, say, ransomware groups begin to get a hold of this and understand that is something happening.
So the next level is we give dam control, power grid control, autonomous vehicles. Unfortunately, that's a now reality. However, thankfully, it's not currently making use of ChatGPT or hopefully heavily use of the cloud. Our autonomous vehicles don't ask some overlord whether or not we care about human babies or whatnot. So it really, as we carve the next steps in AI future, we have to, I'm right in the center. I think that we're actually probably a bit farther away from the thing that we really need to be afraid of. However, we need to make legislation in advance to have some transparency in how AI ML work, why decisions are made. We need to understand the risks of ChatGPT or GPT 6, 7, 8.0, because it turns out our legal system drags behind technology. It always has. It's the reason that we still have the same hacking laws that we have since like 1996, 94, whatever it was. And how we plug AI into things that can kill people and affect the universe that matters. That's what we need to pay attention to. As opposed, shifting onto AI as a training thing, there's a certain degradation of society that I fear, that I have concerns over, because take for example, I've got a great friend, a great guy that I'm mentoring in hacking, and he is making heavy use of ChatGPT to learn. And one of the things that I've discovered, and this is, no fault of this guy, I think he's actually brilliant. I like that he's exploring AI and getting good at AI, because I think that's a skill that will be great in the future as we continue to progress. My concern is to give a challenge to a mentee and to have them go do Google searches and run across all sorts of things that aren't the answer. That sets him up with stubs in his knowledge of what he doesn't know. So that later when he's learning a thing...
I love that, Matt, by the way.
And it also does a thing that points back at the stubs to what he doesn't know. Maybe 2 or 3 times now he knows, let's go fucking learn that thing that's stubbed out.
And maybe that's how we shortcut the learning gap.
This is where
we don't have a decade to get up to speed, like many of us have had to come up from like help desk and sysadmin and learning the ropes and making the mistakes. Like, we can help short circuit this next generation a little bit with those stubs if provided in the right way. And this is where I think you're on. Like, there's some nuance to having to struggle through it, learn it, and or the methods of society that, you lose some of the personal touch and the ability to go out and enjoy learning just in time.
This is where I was going in our previous segment with Josh. I was not expressing my concerns as articulate as Matt and Tyler were. It's along those same lines of what you guys were saying, right? And I think it stems from, and I've talked about this on the show and other interviews that I've done, is that in the very first computer job that I had when I was still in college, I worked for a very small software company, less than 50 people at the time, in the 90s. And they had this rule, and it was part of the culture, that like, if you didn't do your homework and you went and asked someone else a question, they had the right to basically humiliate you, say no, and go back and do your homework. And this was ingrained in the culture. So like, sometimes I would be like, all right, I need the answer. Like, sometimes you were just like, I gotta take the beating, right, to get to where I need to be. But most of the time you were like, oh, like, I gotta go try and figure this out on my own first. And they had this rule, like, don't spend the entire day trying to get an answer to the question that the person in the cubicle next to you knows the answer to. Don't do that. They're like, spend 30 minutes to an hour max. Go try and figure it out on your own. Then go ask to the best of your ability and everything you just learned in that 30 to 60 minutes. Ask the question in the most intelligent way possible. Explain what you tried, what you did, what you researched, and then ask the question. If you did that, that person was more willing to spend time with you. My issue with the LLMs today is they don't have that. I can ask ChatGPT whatever I want, and it will spit back an answer. And I don't want that to be like the defining thing that's how we're learning now, right? To both of you.
Hey, Paul, how many times did you, while writing it up in the way that would be accessible to your mentor or your
come to the answer?
Come to the answer.
Quite a bit. I mean, not all the time, but
came
sometimes.
From that.
Yes.
How much empowerment came from that? How much of who you are and the fact that you're confident stem from that? Like, fuck, I solved this problem just writing up the question.
Yes.
Maybe I should do that again. Maybe I can learn what I need to know. Maybe
but also,
I can
Matt,
actually
but to your point,
answer this.
But the opposite thing, Matt, sometimes I would research it, go ask the question to the most senior person at the company, and they go, wait, I don't know the answer to that either. And that's just as reaffirming as getting to the answer yourself, is going, wait, I just asked someone way smarter than me, like they don't know the answer either. And so now we get to figure it out together, which is, I think, even the more powerful thing is that, holy crap, we're figuring out together. Like, how cool is this? I swear to God, Larry and I do this all the time now together as well. Like, we get all this hacking shit on the table. I don't know how much of it you can see, but we ask each other questions like that all the time. Like, wait, where do I go from here? And sometimes, again, it's like 50-50. Sometimes Larry and I are like, oh, wait, that's the answer. Other times we're like, shit, I don't know the answer. Let's figure it out together. That's like the beauty of hacking and so many friendships that we have in this industry, right?
And it really is about people. Tyler, don't think I've forgotten that you said that I'm wrong. I'll get back to that in a second. I'm just kidding.
I never said you were wrong.
So actually, all right, I forgot what I was going to say. Your Paul here. Okay, that takes me back to a story about one of my employees, Erin. She was working. We were working on this offensive thing, tearing apart an infotainment system, doing a thing like really hardcore reversing, and Erin was just new to reversing at the time. Erin was brilliant and way capable in aerospace and automotive and like developing all the things. And we were working on a thing. I'd gone for a business trip. I came back a week later, and Erin shows up with like stuff that made me go, like, holy shit, what just happened? And I actually said that, Erin, what the hell did I just see? What just happened? Like, and Erin said to me, I just realized that I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. Like, you were there last week. What changed? And Erin said to me, and I think this resonates with most of us on the call probably, then I realized that probably nobody else did, and I just better do it. And she conquered fucking mountains, threw them into the sea from a reverse engineering standpoint, because that thing clicked after, I'm telling you, probably 6 months of just trying to create space for Erin to realize what she was totally capable of.
Right.
And then she did. And so actually, I'll go back to Tyler now. So yeah, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm not, but I'll tell you this. There is a truism that I've discovered in my career that could be true or could be not. You know, I don't know everything, but I've started to think about 5 levels of mastery. The first level is called bullshit bingo. Basically, I know all the buzzwords and I can convince people who don't know anything that I know what I'm talking about.
But what's interesting about that first point, Matt, is that with just that first level, if you have some social skills with that, you can convince people that are way smarter than you to give you the answer. Right?
Yep.
Which is kind of frightening. It's kind of frightening.
Well, I mean, and now we're back to the LLMs who are lying to you, making shit up and then apologizing. Like, totally. They could teach classes on apologizing. Whatever you just say, you know, give me the proof of this thing. Give me this reasoning why you think this. Oh, I'm so sorry. It's horrible. Anyway, so there's bullshit bingo. Then there's intelligent conversant. Intelligent conversant is where I've done the study. I understand this reading and this reading. Maybe I've read an architecture manual. Like, if people have a question, they come to me. And that is a huge deal. Like, there's massive respect for that. The third layer is I've done that once. And the difference between I've studied and I've done that once, particularly with exploitation in mind for me, it's epically huge. Like, all the little things, the micro things that I had to solve to get to the I did it once and it worked. It is mind-boggling how big a difference that makes. The next 2 layers are, you know, they're going to sound boring, but they're really big. I did that 5 to 10 times. And we're talking like journeyman thing. And each time you completely do a thing, there are different nuances. There are different things that you learn, like stuff that just doesn't go quite the same, and you had to learn a new thing. That provides, if you think about it, like in information triangulation, where you've got multiple viewpoints on the same thing, and you just start to see the knowledge area in a whole new light, and you can start answering questions that you actually have never done the thing required, but you know enough from the different perspectives that you're pretty confident in the answer.
But wait, the last thing,
technology intuition.
But it's the last thing. Not only did it once, but I did it multiple times. But I taught other people how to do it. Would be in my mind. In my mind, that would be the last thing. Because I tell you what, recent example that I just had was two people, one of those being me, tackled a problem, and we had done stuff like that before more than once, and couldn't solve the problem. I brought it to someone else, and they solved the problem, and then after they solved the problem and taught it to me, they were like, "Oh yeah, I teach other people how to solve this problem." I'm like, "Oh." Like, wow. Like that. I was well like, done. Well, thank you for teaching me. I'm like, that's amazing, right? I think we're always the student in that sense.
So I guess to some degree I hadn't thought about it, but that is, and the last is I'm a master of a known domain. And there are many domains in InfoSec, and there's many domains in development, exploitation, whatever. But I'm a master of a known domain, which means I've done it enough times that no shit, I know what I'm talking about, and people come to me and they get answers that are real. And I hadn't really thought about it, but that should come with I teach people how to do this. So
that also allows you to get creative, and the innovation sparks from, I think, those last two in really interesting ways, because whether it's intuition or whether it's multiple triangulations of so many bits of knowledge and so many experiences, the ability to foreknow and forego some mistakes and or make leaps that were otherwise creative and not thought of by other people, you have to have all of those base layers to get to those last two to be able to do some of that. And that's why it looks like magic to some people. But those are also required for intuition and innovation to take part and be done well.
Speaking of magic, we didn't talk about hardware hacking much in this.
That just means Matt needs to come back.
I think, Matt, you're going to have to come back because we're kind of short on time. But
nice segue.
Like, really briefly, in a couple of minutes, Matt, like, I want to ask you what's got you excited today about hardware hacking, reverse engineering, firmware kind of stuff, without obviously giving too much away about stuff you're working on that you don't want to talk about publicly. I totally get. But what's got you excited today? Larry and I have all this gear thrown on the table. I mean, it's no secret what got us excited, but what's got you excited lately?
So, wow, that's a great question. As you know, I run a team of some of the most amazing hardware hackers in the world, and they are focused on automotive and aerospace and space. And I was just in a meeting with a number of folks that after our scrum, where we had our stand up and gave our updates on where we're at, like several of the people stuck around and just talked about this particular project that we're working on. And it delved into software exploitation. It talked about how to get around hardware things. It's so incredible. I will tell you that I'm a huge fan of hardware exploitation for the purpose of figuring out how to maximize your ability. So basically you gain access to one particular piece of equipment. Call it an infotainment system, call it a power smart meter, your electric vehicle charger, whatever. But hardware hacks are really only an access into one device. You can't hardware hack the world. But hardware hacking gives you the ability to gain access to how the system was developed to do software exploitation, which does gain you the world. So let's say you've got let's just say, for example, the latest Hummer, EV Hummer. Okay, I don't even know, whatever. And you hack your own Hummer. You identify its uplinks, the ways that it's connected to the internet, ways it's connected to cellular, however you can access it, either over the internet, in proximity RF, but not touching it, or touching it, because they're all good, valid attack vectors. But once you do hardware hacking to gain access to the running code, but then you have to figure out how to do it remote, how to maximize what you've gained. And And so, my two favorite tools in the world are Vivisect and Binary Ninja. Vivisect, because it is truly just such a powerful, flexible tool for automating discovery of interesting information in a binary and a firmware image, whatever. Binary Ninja is a bit more robust, a bit more tested, and also has an amazing API. I just don't know it as well. So the stuff that gets me up in the morning, that makes me happy, is running a team of amazing hardware hacking engineers and these tools that help us to automate the things that can be automated. And the reason I got heavily into AI is the attempt and effort and continued effort to take the knowledge of software exploitation and software vulnerability research and chewing that through a neural network and trying to have AI augment my capability. I see AI right now in the next 5 to 10 years as an RPG. It's a rocket propelled grenade where I've got the grenade. But with AI, perhaps we can launch that in a way that is just way more impactful.
And certainly for reverse engineering, I think you're really on to something, right? I look at that as a tool, and I look at the tools we have today, some of which you just mentioned, right, and others that are building on the tools that we've used as kind of one-offs and putting them in a suite. Like it helps us tremendously. I don't think it supplements I got to understand how all that stuff works without the automation. To my point in the previous interview, right? But build that knowledge, and then if you can automate that and scale that, I think that's what really gets us to the next level of understanding these. Also, I think in your description, Matt, it's interesting. Hardware without software is really just a paperweight. Right? Like we talk about hardware hacking, and there are what we would call hardware hacks, like like messing with voltage and sniffing buses, or what I would call like really hardware hacks. But like it's software that's pushing that data around. Right. And enabling the hardware to do something. Basically, it's all about software, right? Because without it, the hardware is just a hunk of metal.
It's a bunch of silicon.
It's a hunk of metal and silicon, right? Rare earth metals without software. So, Matt, I want to thank you so much for coming on Paul's Security Weekly this evening. You'll have to come back and talk more about hardware hacking. Yeah, thank you so much for coming on the show tonight. And with that, we'll take a short break and come back, and we're going to cover the news in an hour. So stay tuned.